Okay, so today we're still talking about multiplying, but we're going to talk about multiplying with mixed numbers. So we still are multiplying the two different parts of fractions, and we're going to do this with visual models. You do not have this paper. You are not supposed to have this paper. You just have your graph paper that you've glued into your notebook. So Mary is making a poster to take with her to her favorite band's concert. I see her poster right here. The poster she has to decorate is 1 1/3 feet, so it's like 1 1/3 feet by 2 1/4 feet. So those are the dimensions, like the width and the length. So what's the area? I know this word area, and I know it is always length times width. All right, so on my piece of graph paper, I'm going to write down 2 1/4 times 1 1/3. Now, we did this when we did decimals. We did 2. So I'm going to do 2 holes. My 2 holes are going to look like 3 by 3s. And I'm going to do 2 holes. Okay? So my 2 holes I'm going to label. Now I have to make fourths. So I have to make a box. Be 1, 2, 3, fourths. 1, 2, 3, 4. So fourths. I made them be fourths, but I'm only going to shade in one of them. Okay? So I have fourths, and I'm going to shade in one of them. I'm going to shade in one of them. Okay? Over here, I'm going to shade in my 2 holes because I have the 2 holes. 1, 2. Okay? So I have 2 holes, and then I have 1 out of my 4. It's very important that I have my 4 total parts and only 1 shade in. So I showed my 2 1/4. Now down here, I'm going to show my 1 hole and my 1/3. But look, I already have my 1 hole drawn, so I don't need to add any more for my 1 hole. Now I have to show my 1/3. Just like when we multiplied decimals, when I come over here, I have to lay my boxes horizontally. So I'm going to split it up into 1, 2, 3 parts because it was thirds, but I'm only talking about one of them. So I'm going to shade in 1 part. So when we did this before, when we did decimals, we drew the models, we labeled our sides 1 out of 3. Then we drew the boundary. We drew the boundary line. Okay, now we extended our lines. I don't have any lines here, but I do have a line right here, so I'm going to make it go down. So I'm making my boundaries. Over here I had a line, so let's continue it. Okay, now how do I know where my coloring should go? I'm going to take my coloring and I'm going to make them match up. I take my coloring and I'm going to make them match up. I'm going to shade everything inside that box. Okay, so let's count up what I have. I have 1 hole and another hole because 2 times 1 is 2. Over here I have 1/4 because 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 1/4. Over here I have, this represents a third and this represents a third. Do you see how I'm labeling every single piece that I have? So 1/3 plus 1/3 is 2/3. Now down here, what are these? Well, I have 4 boxes by 3 boxes. So inside of this rectangle right here, I've cut these into smaller pieces, fourths times thirds, which turns into 12ths. So now I have to add all my parts. Is there one of these denominators that I can keep? Yes, I can keep 12ths because 3 and 4 can turn into 12, just like we studied for that test when we added fractions. Now let's come over here and let's turn these into 12ths. 3 times what is 12 times 4 times 4. 4 times what gives me 12? Times 3 times 3. 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 4 is 8. So now I have to add up all my parts. 8 plus 3 is 11. 1 more is 12. Okay, and I have my 2 holes. So I have to figure out what this equals. Well, 12 twelfths, I know 12 twelfths, that equals another hole. So 2 holes plus 1 hole equals 3 holes. So we're going to do another example, kind of the same way. So the playground here has a picnic shelter that's covered and has picnic tables. The picnic shelter is this many yards wide and this many yards long. What's the total area? Area is length times width. Length times width. So I'm going to write on my piece of graph paper 2 1/4 times 2 1/2. 2 1/4 times 2 1/2. Let me write that over in a darker color in case some of us can't see that on the screen. 2 1/4 times 2 1/2. All right, so I'm going to start going my first one. I'm going to go, I like my boxes 3 by 3. I feel like it's the perfect size. Not too big, not too small. So I need 2 holes. 1, 2 holes. I'm going to shade those in because I have 2 holes. I'm going to label that 2 holes. And now I have 1/4. So I need to make 4 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 1 hole cut up into fourths, 4 parts. And I have 1 of them. Okay? This represents a 1/4. Okay? This represents a hole. This represents a hole. This is a 1/4. Okay? So on this side, I'm going to do my 2 1/2. I already have 1, so I need to add 1 more. So here's my 2 holes. I'll go ahead and color that in because I have it. So this is 2 holes. 2 holes going down the side. Now I need to make a half. So I just need to make a box that has 2 parts. 2 parts. And I did them laying down sideways. Remember, these go this direction vertically. These go this direction. 1/2. I'm going to shade in. I only have 1 out of those 2 parts. Okay, I'm going to label that 1/2. 2 1/4 times 2 1/2. So now I have to make my lines. It's very important that I have these extras or else my denominators won't show up right. Make my boundary. I'm going to come over here. This is where my line starts, so I'm going to continue it. Okay, this is where my line starts, so I'm going to continue it. Okay? Now I have to take where my coloring starts and continue that. And I'm going to shade in what I have. This is how I'm finding the area of the inside of my picnic shelter. All right, this represents a hole. If this is a 1/4, this is also a 1/4. If this is a 1/2, this is also a 1/2. Down here, I had 1/4 times halves. And down here in this section, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So these are all 8s. But I should know that because 2 times 4 is 8. All right, now let's count up all my numbers here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 holes. I did these. I have 1/4 plus another 1/4. 1/4 and 2/4 is 2/4. 1/2 and a 1/2. 1/2 and a 1/2 make me a hole. And then I had 1/8. Okay, so is there one of these that I can keep and I can have the other one turn into it? Let's keep 1/8. Is there anything that I can do to 4ths that will give me 8? Yes. Times 2 times 2. Because 4 times 2 is 8. 2 times 2 is 4. So let's add our parts. 4/8 plus 1/8 is 5/8. 4 plus 1 is 5. This is what some people want to do, and it is wrong. they tell me 2 times 2 is 4, and they tell me 1/4 times 1/2 is 1/8, and they tell me this is the answer. So we're going to talk about why this does not match our picture. Why do I have to do so much other work to get the correct answer? This is the correct answer. This is the wrong answer. I can't just do 2 times 2, and I can't just multiply the wholes and multiply the fractions. It doesn't work. So we're going to talk about tomorrow why.